I was halfway down the church steps when someone grabbed my arm hard enough to stop me. I turned, expecting one of my cousins to make another awkward joke about me leaving before the reception, but it was Claire, my brother Daniel's new wife. Her face had gone completely pale. The music from inside drifted through the open doors behind her, cheerful and completely wrong for the look in her eyes. "Help me," she whispered. I stared at her. 10 minutes earlier, she had been standing beside Daniel beneath a white floral arch, smiling for photographs while our mother cried happy tears in the front row. Now Claire was gripping my sleeve like I was the only person she trusted. "What happened?" I asked. She glanced over her shoulder toward the reception hall. "Not here." Before I could ask anything else, she slipped a folded piece of paper into my hand. "Whatever Daniel tells you tonight, don't believe him." Then she walked back inside before I could stop her. I stood there with the paper burning against my palm, wondering why the woman who had just married my brother was asking me for help. Daniel and I had never been close. We were only 18 months apart, but growing up, it felt like we lived in different families. He was the son my parents bragged about. I was the one they called when something needed fixing. When our father died 3 years earlier, Daniel received the family business. I received Dad's old pickup truck and a box of photographs. I told myself I didn't care. Maybe I almost believed it. But I had noticed something strange about Claire from the moment she arrived at the rehearsal dinner. She kept looking at me whenever Daniel mentioned our father. I had assumed she was simply nervous about marrying into a complicated family. Now, standing outside the church with her warning in my hand, I unfolded the paper. There were only 2 sentences written in blue ink. "Ask Daniel about the safe deposit box. Ask him why Dad's signature is on the withdrawal form." My stomach tightened. Dad had been dead for 3 years. I read the words again, then looked through the church doors. Daniel was laughing with our mother near the cake table, shaking hands like the happiest man alive. But just before he turned away, his eyes met mine. His smile disappeared. He had seen the paper in my hand. I folded the note and slipped it into my jacket before anyone else could notice. For the first time that night, I stopped thinking about the wedding and started thinking about Dad. My father had been careful with money, always keeping receipts, contracts, and bank statements locked away. After his funeral, Mom told me Daniel handled the paperwork because I was too emotional. I never questioned it. Now I wondered what else I had missed. I walked inside, pretending nothing had changed. I made it through the reception without saying a word about the note. Daniel kept watching me from across the room, but I avoided him and stayed near the back wall. Claire disappeared twice, each time returning with the same nervous expression. When the photographer called everyone outside for a final group picture, I used the opportunity to slip into the hallway. I had just pulled out my phone when Daniel appeared behind me. "You planning on leaving again?" he asked. His voice sounded casual, but his eyes weren't. "I was thinking about it," I said. He leaned against the wall. "Mom said you were acting strange tonight." I almost laughed. Mom had spent most of the evening telling relatives how proud she was of both her sons. Apparently, that pride had limits. "I'm tired," I said. Daniel nodded slowly. "You always were good at walking away." The words hit harder than they should have. Before I could answer, Claire stepped into the hallway. She looked at Daniel, then at me. "Can I talk to him?" she asked. Daniel's jaw tightened. "About what?" "Something private." He stared at her for several seconds before finally walking away. The moment he disappeared around the corner, Claire grabbed my wrist. "Did you read it?" she whispered. I nodded. "What safe deposit box?" "The one at First National. Your father had it before he died." I felt a chill run through me. "How do you know?" Claire looked down. "Because I found the paperwork in Daniel's desk." She told me she had discovered it 2 weeks before the wedding while looking for their marriage license. Inside a folder labeled Taxes, she found copies of bank records, a withdrawal authorization, and a handwritten note from our father. But there was something else. Daniel wasn't supposed to have access to that box, she said. Your father listed both of you as beneficiaries. Both of us? I asked. Claire nodded. And the bank records show someone entered it 6 months before your father died. I stared at her. How much? I don't know. The statement only showed the balance before the withdrawal. She reached into her purse and handed me a photograph. It showed a bank document with Dad's name at the top. Under the signature line was a signature that looked like his, but something about it felt wrong. Dad always signed his name with a long underline beneath the final letter. This signature didn't have one. I thought Daniel forged it, Claire whispered. But I don't know for sure. I looked toward the reception hall. Then why marry him? Her eyes filled with tears. Because I didn't know until after I sent the invitations. And when I confronted him, he told me your father gave him everything because he trusted him more than you. She swallowed hard. But yesterday, I found the original document. I felt my chest tighten. Where is it? Claire looked directly at me. In Daniel's car. Then the hallway door opened behind us. The hallway door opened, and my mother stepped through. Claire immediately wiped her eyes and straightened her dress. Mom looked between us, then smiled in a way that felt forced. There you are, she said to Claire. Everyone is waiting for the bride. Claire nodded and walked past her without saying a word. Mom waited until she was gone before turning to me. What were you two talking about? Nothing important, I said. She studied my face for a moment. Daniel says you've been asking questions about your father. My stomach dropped. Daniel says a lot of things. Her expression hardened. Don't start this tonight. Start what? I asked. The old jealousy. That word again. Jealousy. Every time I questioned something Daniel did, I was jealous. Every time I disagreed with him, I was bitter. I had spent years accepting that label because fighting it seemed pointless. But tonight, I couldn't. Mom, did Dad ever give Daniel permission to take money from his account before he died? Her face changed. Just for a second. But I saw it. Your father trusted your brother. That's not what I asked. She looked toward the reception hall. Leave it alone. Then she walked away. I stood there realizing she knew something. I waited until the reception ended. When everyone moved outside for the final photographs, I slipped through the side entrance and found Daniel's car parked behind the church. I knew it was wrong to search it, but Claire's fear had changed something in me. I checked the center console, the glove box, and finally the trunk. Under a folded blanket was a black document case. My hand shook as I opened it. Inside was a property appraisal, several bank statements, and an envelope marked with my father's handwriting. For my sons, it said. I opened it carefully. Dad had written the letter months before his death. He explained that he had discovered someone had been moving money from the family account. He suspected the person was close to him, but he hadn't yet found proof. He wrote that if anything happened to him, Daniel and I were supposed to open the safe deposit box together. The final paragraph made my throat tighten. Dad wrote, if Daniel tells you I chose him over you, don't believe him. I never wanted either of my sons to feel second. I read the sentence twice. Then I heard footsteps behind me. Daniel was standing there. He didn't yell. He simply looked at the letter in my hand. You weren't supposed to find that, he said quietly. What happened to the money? I asked. Daniel looked away. I didn't take it. Then who did? He took a slow breath. Mom. I froze. What? He reached into his pocket and pulled out a second document. She made me sign the withdrawal form. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. I looked at the document in Daniel's hand, then at my brother. Why would Mom do that? I asked. Daniel's eyes filled with shame. because Dad had changed his will. He explained that 6 months before Dad died, he discovered Mom had secretly taken money from their joint savings account to pay off debt she had hidden for years. Dad confronted her and told her he was going to separate their finances and change the inheritance. Mom panicked. She convinced Daniel that if Dad left the money tied up in the estate, the family business could collapse. She told him she only needed him to sign one withdrawal form so she could protect everyone. Daniel believed her. The money was transferred into an account Mom controlled. But after Dad died, Daniel learned the truth. The business had never been in danger. Mom had used most of the money to pay personal debts and cover expenses she had hidden from Dad. Daniel had spent 3 years carrying the guilt alone. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked. He looked at the ground. "Because Mom told me you would hate me. And I was scared she was right." I felt anger rise in me, but underneath it was something worse: grief. All those years I had believed Dad chose Daniel. All those years I had resented my brother for something he hadn't done alone. Then Claire appeared behind him. She had heard everything. She walked toward us slowly and handed Daniel a folder. "I found this yesterday," she said. Inside was the original bank authorization, along with a letter from the bank confirming that Dad's signature had been disputed before his death. There was also a copy of the updated will. Dad had left the family business to both of us equally. I looked at Daniel. He wanted us to have it together. Daniel nodded, tears finally running down his face. "I know." We returned to the reception hall together. Mom was standing beside the cake, smiling for photographs. Daniel walked straight toward her and placed the document on the table. Her smile vanished. He didn't scream. Neither did I. We simply told her the truth. She admitted what she had done before the entire family. The room became completely silent. No dramatic shouting followed. Just the uncomfortable sound of people realizing they had believed the wrong story for years. Later that night, Daniel found me outside the church. "You still leaving?" he asked. I smiled. "Not tonight." We stood beside each other under the parking lot lights, watching Claire laugh with the guests through the window. For the first time since Dad died, my brother didn't feel like the person standing between me and my family. He felt like family. I never got the apology I had wanted from Mom. But I finally understood something Dad had tried to teach us in that letter: sometimes the truth doesn't repair everything. Sometimes it simply gives you the chance to stop carrying the wrong pain. And that was enough for me.